The radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this, what is it? Oh, it's Thursday. Can't keep track anymore. Thursday, March 6th, as we continue our reporting on Whiplash. Whiplash, it does not refer to the movie. In this case, it is referring to, I don't know, the tariffs, the stock market, the bond market, just the insanity that's going on right now. Insanity, destructive, unnecessary, all happening before our eyes. So we'll talk about that. Talk about global markets, not just in the U.S. You've got craziness happening in the bond markets, particularly in Europe, but also in Japan. And that is also caused by the Trump administration, so not by tariffs. That's caused by Ukraine. But it's all bundled together. And we're still waiting, of course, for tariffs on EU and Japan and everybody else to be put in place. We'll talk about DOGE. Republicans trying to give DOGE some good advice. We'll see what happens there. Shipbuilding, big focus of the Trump administration. Shipbuilding, we need to build ships in America. We need to build ships. We need to keep the Jones Act. We need to have American ships. That's important, we're told. We'll talk about Ukraine. A little bit of news about Ukraine. And rare earth materials. There's a lot of talk about rare earth materials. It's the base for the whole mineral deal with Ukraine, which is stupid, as we'll see. We'll talk about that. And we will talk about Tesla's declining sales. Jennifer says it's John Stossel's 78th birthday. Well, happy birthday, John Stossel. That's great. He did release another video with me on selfishness. I'm still waiting for the full interview. He just released his full interview with Snowden a couple of days ago, so maybe not mine's next week or maybe the week after that. But that is coming. That is coming. We will see. All right. Reminder to ask questions. That's how we keep the show going, and that's how we keep the show going financially, but also content-wise. We keep the show going by that. So ask questions, use the Super Chat. Super Chat is the way to do it. Don't ask questions in the chat. Hard for me to follow and hard for me to respond to everything. Once in a while, I get triggered, so I respond to something. So I guess you could try triggering me. But if that happens too much, I'll just shut off the chat because people tell me too much responding to the chat going on anyway. All right, so let's talk about tariffs again. Well, I'm not gonna talk about tariffs vis-a-vis bad policy. We already know that. It's just this craziness that is going on, and it's a craziness that is a consequence of the tariffs, but it's also craziness that's a consequence of Trump people, his Treasury Secretary, his Commerce Secretary, his trade guru. Going out there into the public and on TV and making comments about trade, which flip-flops, whiplashes us all over the place. So, we had tariffs on Mexico and Canada, 25%, and then there was a deal with Canada and Mexico. So they were postponed by a month, and in the meantime, both the Canadians and the Mexicans, ramped up controls over the border to prevent, I guess, fentanyl and illegal immigrants. All those Canadians flowing through the border to try to get into the United States illegally, and they ramped that up. And there was some hope that the consequence of that would be no more tariffs. And then Trump comes back and says, no, they didn't do enough. There's still fentanyl coming in, and up go the tariffs. So we get renewed tariffs on Canada, and then a day after the tariffs go into effect, the what's his name, the Ludwig, the Commerce Secretary, comes out and says, Oh, I expect there to be massive exemptions on the tariffs tomorrow or today, later today, and the market, of course, went down a lot when tariffs were announced, then went up when Ludwig said they're going to be exemptions, and then Trump comes out and he exempts the auto industry for 1 month on both Canada and Mexico, and the market goes, ooh, that's not what we expected. Goes down again, whiplash, and then Ludwig comes out and says, oh no, it really looks like Trump is going to. This is a following day, yesterday I think. He's going to exempt everything that is USMCA. USMCA is the NAFTA replacement deal that Trump negotiated. Everything that's covered under USMCA, he's going to exempt. He's just going to exempt. And then everybody waits, and everybody's, yeah, okay, cool. This isn't a real war. It's just a negotiating tactic. Remember, just negotiating. And then today he comes out and says, Trump says, yes, I'm going to do that, but only for Mexico. Only for Mexico. I had a good conversation with President Claudia Sheinbaum, and she's great. We have a very good relationship. And they are working hard. We're working hard together on the border to stop illegal immigration and to stop fentanyl. And I'm going to give her a month. So April 2nd. But let's hope she get her acts together by April 2nd. This is on Mexico. Canada, nothing. It turns out he had a conversation with Claudia Sheinbaum and came to some amicable agreement. It's interesting. We'll talk in a minute about Claudia's tactics. She have to respect Claudia. She's got Trump nailed. On the other hand, he had a conversation with Trudeau, and it turns out the conversation with Trudeau by phone turned into a yelling match, in which Trump yelled profanities at Trudeau. Trudeau kept saying, "Look, fentanyl. Fentanyl is going down." In terms of whatever fentanyl is coming into the U.S. is coming down according to, your measures, the U.S. border control measures. And Trump and Vance, who was on the phone with him, said, oh, no, that's not what we're looking at. And Trudeau's like, well, tell me what you are looking at. And Trump's, no. You guys aren't doing enough. You guys. And here's the difference. Trudeau is being inspired or inspires Zelensky. I don't know. But Trudeau from the beginning has this is stupid. What are you doing, Trump? That's been his attitude, basically. Basically, the attitude has been, it doesn't make sense. What are you putting tariffs on us? Fentanyl doesn't really come from Canada. It comes from Mexico. We don't have any illegal immigrants coming in. What are you talking about? That's been, and this is, we have a great relationship of trade between us. Why are you wrecking this? Trudeau is not, has spoken back to Trump. And that's the mistake. You cannot talk back to Trump. It hurts his ego. Again, remember, Trump is a fragile child with a very, very delicate self-esteem and a very delicate ego. And as bad as Trudeau is, Trudeau's awful. Trudeau's not just going to roll over. Of course, Trump also insulted Canada in a way that he didn't insult Mexico. He called it the 51st state and everything else. But Trudeau's fighting back, not just Trudeau, but Ford, the provincial governor, and now, I mean, God, Trump's going to flip out. Alberta's premier, who is as MAGA as you can get in Canada, which again is a different kind of MAGA than over here. Danielle Smith, she just did a press conference in which she said, quote, "The problem at Alberta appears to be drugs coming up from the United States into Canada, cocaine or crystal meth. The issue of migrants seems to be exclusively people coming across from the United States into Canada. We're not seeing the same in reverse." So she's contradicting Trump. I don't know if anybody told Danielle Smith, but you can't do that. It's just not acceptable. You can't contradict Trump. It's really not allowed. So we have tariffs on Canada, but not on Mexico for a month on some goods, because only the goods covered under USMCA, which is a lot. So those are not tariffs, but Canada is tariffed. Go figure out the logic of that. Well, I know the logic of that. I mean, the whole tariff thing is Trump whim, Trump emotion, Trump tantrum, childhood tantrums. There's no logic here. There's no strategy. There's no economic logic. There is Trump's feelings. That's all there is. Claudia Sheinbaum, who is a crazy socialist. I mean, she's really bad. She's really bad. But she has an overwhelming majority in the Senate, in Houses of Parliament in Mexico. She dominates politics in Mexico right now. She's basically taking the approach of, I'm not really going to retaliate. I'm going to stay quiet. I'm going to talk to Trump. Yeah, I mean, we can help with the border. We can do stuff in the border. That's okay. But I'm not getting into a shouting match with him. Not going to get into an insult match with him. I'm not going to get into a tariff match with him. Whereas the Canadians have put on a bunch of, tariffs in response to Trump. The Mexicans have not. They've said they will, and I believe they will if the tariffs stick, that they will put retaliatory tariffs. But for now, they just haven't. They just haven't. And she is just playing, I'm going to be respectful to Trump. I'm not going to yell. I'm not going to threaten. I'm not going to retaliate. And that's how it works. That's how it works. Yeah, I'm sure. David said Mexican police captured a large amount of fentanyl this morning. Sure, they're going to stage this. It's going to beautifully. I mean, she has a good relationship with the cartels. Her predecessor had a good relationship with the cartels. I mean, basically, the Mexican military and Mexican police leave the cartels alone. There's a deal there. So basically, what she probably did was said, look, we need to put on a good faith effort to show Trump we're doing something. So, you cartels, part of the deal, we'll catch some of your fentanyl. We might give it back to you afterwards, but we'll catch some of your fentanyl and we'll show Trump, see? I mean, I'm making this up, but I would not be surprised at all if that is exactly what's happening in Mexico. Remember, she has, and I think I talked about this when she was first elected, she and her predecessor come from the same political party. They have said they don't want a war with the cartels. They have had a positive relationship with the cartels. They accept the cartel violence in exchange for, I don't know, being the main political party being left alone. So, they're gonna make a show. Illegal immigration is across the Mexican border has plummeted, really gone down a lot, and that is partially due to her efforts. So she's doing what Trump requires, and she gets temporary, at least, retrieves from the tariffs, and she's a hero back home, right? She's a hero back home because on the other hand, the Canadians are fighting back. I mean, the other thing that Danielle, whatever her name was, the premier of Alberta said was, the Americans need our oil. They need our natural resources. They don't, Danielle Smith, thank you. We have the natural resources they need, and we export natural resources to them. And yeah, they claim to be energy independent, but not really, because much of the United States depends on refining this heavy oil that comes from Canada, and Russia, by the way, and American oil is not have this heavy type. You need us. So it's actually quite shocking that the polite, nice, friendly, moderate Canadians are the ones fighting back. But they are. Good for them. I'm enthusiastic about Canada. Now, ideally, they would put their own tariffs to zero. That would be amazing, right? But that, they're not that sophisticated. They haven't quite embraced free market economics yet. As I told you yesterday, there was an economist out of George Mason University, Canadian, arguing that they should do that. And of course, he's absolutely unequivocally right. But the likelihood that they actually do it is pretty close to zero. I mean, there's just the political will is not there. The understanding of free market economics is not there. Remember, these are mild, moderate, left of center type people. These are not radicals for free market. But I respect anybody who is willing to speak back to Trump. I respect anybody who's willing to fight the bastard. I mean, Trump descends daily into lower and lower and lower rungs of hell in terms of how bad he is. Mexico is respecting in terms of NAFTA. So is Canada. Nobody's accusing Canada of violating NAFTA. Nobody. I haven't seen anybody, including Trump, accuse Canada of violating the terms of NAFTA. Let's see. Trump's people are out there in the news media again, basically spouting unbelievable economic ignorance. It is truly stunning. How bad his team is. I thought they were better, and I think to some extent they are better, but they feel like they have to defend Donald Trump no matter what. Now, the one guy who is not better, I mean, I've been complaining about Peter Navarro. I've met Peter Navarro for what? Over 10 years? 15 years maybe? I think I met him 15 years ago. I mean, the guy is one of the most ignorant people in the world in economics. I mean, literally. One of the most ignorant people in economics. He was an anti-trade, quote, economist, not really economist, way before Trump, right? That's why Trump picked him, because he was the only guy out there who actually agreed with Trump on trade. Anyway, Peter Navarro's out there, and this is, here you go. This is not in economics, but this tells you kind of how they think about it, right? How they think about it in terms of why we're keeping tariffs on Canada and not on Mexico. Here's what it boils down to. How dare Governor Trudeau, he calls him Governor Trudeau, how dare Governor Trudeau refer to President Trump as Donald? It's highly disrespectful. Trump is simply frustrated by the unfairness of the USMCA trade deal with Canada that Trump negotiated and signed. I mean, these people are nuts. Nuts. And then he says on TV, and you Canadians, you can verify that this is indeed a fact. Navarro says on TV, on CNN, he says that Trudeau has allowed Mexican gang cartels to embed themselves across Canada. So it turns out the cartels are not running Mexico. That is an delusion. They're actually running Canada. It's the cartels are running Canada. That's why Canada is such a violent place. I mean, murder rates in Canada just through the roof. I better say I'm kidding, because somebody will take me seriously and actually go look it up. That is Peter Navarro. Again, the most ignorant economist I know. Really somebody who has no understanding of economics. None. I don't know who gave him a degree. Here's Commerce Secretary Ludwig. Quote, Canada has a national sales tax. Another way to say a national tariff on our products. They import from us very little, and they export us a huge amount. Canada and Mexico had an invitation to trade with an amazing economy of the United States of America, and they have abused the invitation. I mean, Ludwig is a business guy And it's just more proof that business people have no understanding, don't necessarily have any understanding of economics. This guy is proving to be, I'm so glad he wasn't made Treasury Secretary. There's a period in which, I think Elon Musk wanted him to become Treasury Secretary. God, the ignorance here. A national sales tax is not a tariff. A national sales tax is tax equal on American goods and Canadian goods. It doesn't discriminate between the two. It taxes both Canadian and American and Chinese and European, all goods at the same rate. That's what a national sales tax does. So I think this is on, where is this, CNBC. This is either Ludwig bold-faced lying, which is quite possible, or he's an idiot. You pick. You pick which one. I don't know. But either way, not a good look for the Trump administration, although they don't care. See, they don't care. They assume most people don't know anything about economics, and much of my, some people on my chat prove them right. People don't know much about economics. They don't understand economics. And they have learned from the left. I've talked about this before. They've learned on the left that if you say something over and over and over again, and you keep repeating it, and you do it with passion and conviction, people will buy into it, even if it's a bold-faced lie, even if it's completely divorced and unrelated to reality. People will just buy into it. They'll just believe it because you said it. And you say it over and over again, and maybe you have a number of different people saying the same thing, and then people start accepting it. And that is the game they're playing. And it's truly, again, unbelievable. So I'm just documenting the just insanity coming out of the Trump administration. One more. This is Treasury Secretary Bessent. Now, Treasury Secretary Bessent actually knows better. He knows a little bit of economics. I've heard him talk where he's semi-rational. So here's what he says. I don't know. You either laugh or you cry. And I prefer to laugh. The Democrats, when they're in power, their economic people are unbelievably ignorant. They spout the Keynesian nonsense that everybody else does. The thing about Republicans is, the thing about Trump is, they spout the same stuff, the same Keynesian ignorance as the Democrats do. But then they add layers of stupidity on top of that, layers of nonsense on top of that. And then, again, they just lie bold-faced in ways that I think are unique. I think they've learned from the president. Here's Bassett today. People say tariffs are a regressive tax. Are they a regressive tax? If you use them to eliminate tax on Social Security, overtime tips, and making auto loans tax deductible? So tariffs, which are a regressive tax, because they're a sales taxes are regressive, somehow they morph into something else because you're cutting these other taxes. And he is presenting it as if those two things are related. That is, if we weren't eliminating all these other taxes, then we wouldn't do tariffs. And that's not true. That has nothing to do with it. Add to that, they were running a massive government deficit and have huge amounts of debt. Why are we cutting taxes at all? Why are we reducing government income at all when we have so much expenditure and we're not cutting that at all? And as we all know, tariffs brings in very little money, and they are regressive. That's just a fact. So again, don't let reality confuse you, people. Don't let reality confuse you. The Trump administration is going to clarify the truth for you slowly but surely. And finally, Bassett says, same interview, he says today, and this is what you voted for. This. Access to cheap goods is not the essence of the American dream. Everybody voted against Biden because of inflation, which in other words meant the cost of living went up. People spent more money in goods. Tariffs will raise some prices, not everything, but some prices. And now, and Trump, of course, promised to lower the cost of living. So now they're saying, yes, the cost of living will go up, but you don't have a right to low cost of living. Anyway, low cost of living, Americans want that? That's part of the American dream? Since when? If a constant rising standard of living is part of the American dream, in a sense, the essence of the American dream, a constant rising standard of living, that requires that at least in purchasing power, things get cheaper and cheaper. So yes, cheap goods is part of the essence of the American dream. But note, they're prepping you now. What are they prepping you for? They're getting you ready for prices going up. They're getting you ready for some uncomfortable economic news. They're getting you ready for maybe a recession. And by the way, a lot of people in MAGA are starting to talk about this. No, a recession's good. It's a cleansing process. This is a recession caused by stupid government policy. It's a cleansing process. We'll get rid of the bad stuff. We'll bring in some good stuff. They're stealing this from the Austrians. And we'll create jobs. We'll invest in America. And then when we come out of the recession, whoa, then America will be amazing. Amazing. You just have to suffer for a little bit. And just in case you don't know about this recession thing, and I'm not sure we're going to a recession, but here's former Trump National Economic Council chairman, Larry Kudlow. Remember, Larry Kudlow was his chief economic advisor last time. Larry Kudlow says, quote, "Some very smart people are telling me that the February job numbers coming out Friday could be flat, even negative." Jobs are being destroyed? How could that be? The GDP tracker from the Atlanta Fed is showing for the first quarter negative 2.5 or negative 2.8. Wow, that is a major contraction, if that's true. I doubt it's true, but if it's true. And we've had lousy numbers on things like housing and business investment. We're going to have to suffer through some bad news. That's Larry Kudlow, a Trump cheerleader, preparing the world for the bad news that is coming. And Larry Kudlow knows enough economics, understands markets enough to know that this bad news is completely self-inflicted. Completely self-inflicted. Completely caused by the just ridiculous economic policies right off the bat of the Trump administration. The first 40 days have been, from an economic perspective, a disaster. Yeah, we got rid of DEI, got rid of a few other things that are positive. From an economic perspective and from a Ukraine perspective, from a foreign policy perspective. Yeah, from a foreign policy perspective and economic perspective, really, bad first 40 days. I'd give them, an F on foreign policy and a D minus, an F on economics. F on economics, yeah, F. Anyway, well, Ian says, can Trump sell it as Biden's fault? Part of it is Biden's fault. There's no question about that. Part of it is that. Much of the inflation was caused by Biden, much of the response to inflation. So the slowdown probably started before Trump came into office. Part of it was Biden's fault. So yeah, of course he'll sell it as Biden's fault because part of that is real, part of that is true. But he could have avoided it. He could have mitigated it with good economic policies. And instead, we got bad economic policies. And massive uncertainty and massive whiplash. And the whiplash is causing markets to decline. And the fact that he gave a reprieve to Mexico did not appease the stock market. The NASDAQ right now is down 3%. Those of you in tech stocks heavy, down 3%. The S&P 500 is down 2%. The Russell 2000 down 1.86%. So yeah, U.S. stock market's down a lot, and indeed, in the 15 days since the trade war was expanded, Trump's trade war was expanded 15 days ago, the S&P 500 is down 6.5%, and the Dow is down 2,000 points. We're going to have higher prices, deepening job cuts, falling business investments, and our export industry is being devastated. But other than that, it's beautiful. It's amazing. It's the most amazingly, stunningly, beautifully economy ever. All because of how amazing and grand and grandiose Trump's policies are. I promised not to mention chess, so I can't mention chess. No more chess. All right, those of you tuning in right now, if you're not a subscriber to the Yaron Brook Show, you should become a subscriber to the Yaron Brook Show. If you subscribe, YouTube will let you know about live shows and everything, and yeah, so subscribe to the Yaron Brook Show, and as we head into the most beautiful, amazing, extraordinary, magnificent recession of all time, you will be updated here about our progress and how we are doing. Of course, there's no guarantee we head into a recession. The U.S. economy is amazingly flexible. The U.S. economy does not depend as much on global trade as many other economies because it is so self-reliant. But we're going to feel it. I mean, I still don't know exactly what the deal is with Apple paying. Does that have to pay 20% tariff to get those iPhones after they're assembled in China? I haven't seen any reporting on the impact of the Chinese tariffs and on, everybody's focused on Canada and Mexico, but we trade a lot with China, and a lot of our tech companies trade with China, a lot of others trade with China. And of course, farmers are hurt because China's already placed tariffs on U.S. food. So I haven't seen much stories on the effects of China and the impact on Apple and impact on other companies. So that's something I'll be looking into the next few days to see if I can dig up some stuff. In the meantime, on the world economy stage, things are going a little nuts. Now, on the positive side, European stocks are up, Asian stocks are up. So if you have a diversified portfolio and you have some global equities, some stocks in other countries, that has mitigated some of the losses that you've taken over the last few weeks in the United States. I think my portfolio is still down, but not quite as much as some of these because I have some international stocks. At the same time, as we discussed yesterday, Germany has announced this massive restructuring of the way it's going to fund itself, and it's going to issue tens of billions of bonds. The European Union wants to raise $800 billion, again, using bonds. So Europe is going to be going in the next few years on a massive borrowing spree, huge amount of borrowing coming out of the European Union in euros. Now, this is causing a bunch of different effects. Everybody assumes that if Europeans are going to have to entice global markets to buy their bonds, they're going to have to offer higher interest rates. That is, if they're going into the spree of bond selling, this increases the risk, bankruptcy risk, inflation risk. And there's only so many people in the world who want to hold euro-denominated bonds. And now there's a huge supply. I'm not sure how if the demand is there. So how do you get the demand to match supply? Well, you lower prices. So what is happening in bond markets right now in Europe is that bond prices are collapsing. and yields are going way up. In other words, interest rates on German bonds are going way up. Yields on their 10-year bonds added as much as 14 basis points on Thursday to reach 2.93, the highest they've been since October 2023. The rate jumped 30 basis points on Wednesday, the biggest increase since the fall of the Berlin Wall. In other words, bond prices plummeting, bond yields going up in anticipation of a flood of new bonds coming. Now, where people going to get the money to buy European bonds? Well, they might get them by selling American bonds. So it's quite possible that what we'll see is people selling U.S. bonds, yields go up, interest rates go up, and shifting to European bonds. That is now global bond markets for government bonds, for safe government bonds, is going to be intense. The United States is issuing, what, $2 trillion of debt a year in order to cover its deficits. The European Union is now going to be issuing tens of billions, if not hundreds of billions of dollars. Now, it's a real challenge. At the same time, people are buying euros. They're buying euros so that they can invest in euro bonds or German bonds. Buying euros drives the euro up and the dollar down. So dollar has been under pressure the last 2 days. Price of dollar in terms of euros, in terms of pound sterling, has declined, the value of the dollar. So these are big shifts. This is the most volatile bond market in Europe, at least since the fall of the Berlin Wall. I mean, literally, they're talking about borrowing $900 billion. And what's striking about this is that Germany is behind all this even before they have a government. They've cut this deal outside of the regular path of negotiating a coalition agreement to form a government. And now the question is, what's the European Central Bank going to do? European Central Bank lowered interest rates in anticipation of economic trouble as a consequence of tariffs. But will it inflate? So it's going to be interesting. Going to be super interesting. Japan, even, this has affected Japanese bonds. Yields on Japanese bonds have reached their highest levels in more than a decade. Same in Australia and New Zealand, rates are surging. Italian bond yields jumped above 4% for the first time in about a year. In the UK, bond prices went down, yields went up. So markets in the whole world are jittery. Jittery. As I've told you, as interest rates go up, everything else held constant, but nothing is constant. Prices go down. So it'll be interesting to see what happens to stock markets on a global scale. This is also being felt in China. China's trying to recalibrate its economy. It is worried about tariffs. It wants to be more self-sufficient. Right now, China depends on consumers all around the world. It produces stuff and then sells them globally. But if the world is slowly shutting down, then China has to encourage its own people to consume. The Chinese save, which is good for long-term economic growth, but is a challenge in an environment where China produces all the stuff that they might not be able to sell overseas because of a trade war. So it is trying to shift its economy towards a consumer economy, whatever the hell that means. They want 1.4 billion consumers. So they want to vigorously boost consumption. You know how you vigorously boost consumption? By increasing productivity and by giving people a sense that their jobs and their future is secure. That could happen in China if they increase economic freedom, economic liberty. I don't think that's what they'll do, but that would do it. If you're making good money and you have a sense that every year you're going to make more and that the economy is growing and it seems to be growing into the future, so you can count in growing income, then you spend, you consume. So we are seeing real, stuff happening. One other just aspect of the trade thing with Canada and Mexico. You know how Trump always says it's about fentanyl and illegal immigrants? Well, where does almost all the fentanyl and illegal immigrants come from? Mexico, not Canada. We all know Canada's small. And yet, he just gives the reprieve to Mexico, but not to Canada. This is what you call emotionalism on steroids governing the country. In the meantime, DOGE is, I guess, continuing the less in the news these days, partially because a lot of what they've done gets reversed regularly. The Supreme Court reversed part of what DOGE did yesterday. The Trump administration also just announced that they're temporarily reinstating thousands of probation employees at the Department of Agriculture who were fired last month because some Merit Systems Protection Board said that it was handled wrong. And you need to provide reasonable grounds for firing people, and they didn't provide reasonable grounds for doing it. And so this is a violation of federal law. Now, this is happening in other places, and the FDA is hiring back people. A bunch of different departments are hiring people back, realizing that they actually need them. At the same time, DOGE is gutting the IRS, and it's tax season. And, it's going to be interesting to see what happens when you gut the IRS in tax season and you're trying to raise revenues because of a deficit. And I'm all for gutting the IRS. That's great. But, tax evasion is going to increase, and they won't be able to follow up on it. And as it is, they're behind, and taxes are not getting simpler. Trump is only making them more complex, not easier. It's going to be more and more easy and more and more lucrative for people to not pay taxes or cheat on their taxes. Interesting. It's an interesting strategy for this administration. In the meantime, Republicans in Congress are warning Elon Musk that, a lot of these spending cuts are going to be overturned by the courts. And what he really needs is support from Congress. And what they're urging him to do is to codify his cuts, to send them to Congress, to ask Congress to actually pass laws that take them into account. But it doesn't really seem that is registering, at least not yet. Again, the budget, the continuing resolution, there's not going to be a budget. All they're going to have is a continuing resolution. It's not really going to cut anything, and certainly not the kind of cuts that DOGE is talking about. And nothing changes. It's just not changing. It's kind of stunning how senators and congressmen know that what DOGE is doing cannot stick. To stick, they have to pass laws. To pass laws, they have to get the data from DOGE and priorities and what they want to cut and how they want to cut it. And DOGE so far has not provided it for them. Now, we'll see what happens. Maybe they'll get their act together, and maybe DOGE will start cooperating with Congress and actually make real change, because real change, as I've said from day one, requires legislation. That's true of deregulation as well, which, again, I don't think will happen. In the meantime, Trump administration is going full steam ahead with this idea of a sovereign wealth fund. We've got extra cash lying around. There's lots of money lying around. There's some Bitcoin that the government hasn't sold, and I guess I don't know where the rest of the money is going to come from, but they can issue more bonds. They'll issue more bonds, and they already have somebody tapped to run this thing. Morgan Stanley banker by the name of Michael Grimes is going to lead this sovereign wealth fund that have Bitcoin and also have money. And after all, look, Saudi Arabia has one, so why shouldn't we? And Norway has one. We should definitely have one if Norway has one. It's a little insane. Now, a lot of this is supposed to be money when then is going to use to make strategic investments in the United States. One of those strategic investments that the Trump is very eager to promote, and there's actually going to be an executive order, I think, in the next few days. There's already a draft of this out there, but there will be an executive order about this, is very eager to bring back the shipping industry. You know, today, China has 230 times the shipping building capacity that the United States has. For every one ship that the United States can build in a year, China can build 230. Trump wants to bring back shipbuilding. Now, there are other countries that can build ships other than China. South Korea and Japan are two countries that still have robust shipbuilding capabilities, but China does dominate the world at this point. The United States does not build ships. It doesn't build ships for, a lot of reasons that have to do with regulation, cost of labor, lack of automation. By the way, do you think it's an accident that, our ports are inefficient, not automated? We just, the port workers, what are they called? What are port workers called? Anyway, the workers at the ports just signed a deal, an employment deal, remember that? Which Trump supported, which has the port owners committing to introduce automation very, very, very slowly. So the port workers won't lose any jobs. Longshoremen, yes, longshoremen. Longshoremen insisted on a slow introduction of technology. So Trump put pressure on the ship owners and the ports, and they agreed. But with these kind of unions, the kind of wages that they make, an average longshoreman makes well over $200,000. With no automation, and with steel prices very, very high. Why is steel prices high? I wonder why steel prices are high. Anybody want to remind me why steel prices are high? Because of Trump tariffs in 2018, which Biden didn't rescind, and then Trump added tariffs on top of the 2018 tariffs from 2025. So steel is very expensive in the United States. But don't worry. Don't worry. The Trump administration is going to sign an executive order that is basically going to embrace industrial policy, and it's going to bring shipbuilding back to America. They're going to make the biggest, best, most beautiful, most amazing, most grandiose ships in all of human history. I mean, they're going to make the Chinese look like nothing. The executive order, by the way, will also include raising wages for nuclear shipyard workers and instructions to Elon Musk to review government procurement processes, including the Navy's, to make them more efficient. So we're going to raise wages, so that we can ship we can build the most expensive ships in human history. And that's how we'll compete with China. In order to do this, by the way, we are going to raise money. We're going to raise money and make it expensive to buy ships or use ships from China. So there's already pending legislation in Congress, right, that aims at restoring U.S. shipbuilding by charging fees on Chinese-flagged or Chinese-built ships. So when ships come to the American ports, they are now going to be fined. They're going to have an extra fee. So not enough we have 20% tariffs on China. If the Chinese ship on ships, not even flagged in China, but built in China, we, Americans, are going to have to pay an extra amount. So, I don't know. I mean, Americans always complain about the Chinese don't play fair, the Canadians don't pay fair, they subsidize their industries, they restrict our ability to bring to enter their markets. We do exactly the same thing. And under Trump, we're going to do a lot more of exactly the same thing. This is industrial policy in its worst form, increasing taxes on Americans, disrupting global trade, disrupting American trade. I mean, American trade exports rely on Chinese ships. But if you're going to make it more expensive for Chinese ships to come to America, exports are going to get hurt. I mean, I really think, no, well, this is not true. This administration is so economically ignorant that they really do risk, doing immense, not small, immense damage to the U.S. economy. I mean, this is much, I know, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I'm going to say it. This is much worse than what Biden did and much worse than what Kamala would have done. Now, Biden did other things that are bad and really bad, like the Chip Act, but this is the Chip Act on steroids, shipbuilding. And chips you can understand. Shipbuilding, why not just buy ships from Korea and Japan? Why not form an alliance with Korea and Japan and have them even build our submarines and our aircraft carriers? They're really good at it. And they are allies and they fear China. So why not help the Japanese and the Koreans and form an alliance around, they already have the capacity. What advantage is it for us to build this? And it's one thing to say, well, we need military ships, but no, this is merchant marines. This is regular ships. This is cargo ships. This is a tripling down on the Jones Act. Now, it's going to create maritime opportunity zones and maritime security trust funds to boost investments. Also, you're not going to be allowed, or you are allowed, but they're going to be special taxes on Chinese cranes. Well, where are you going to get the cranes from if not from China? Oh, we can get those unautomated cranes. We don't need cranes. We've got people. We'll just use longshoremen. We don't need cranes. David says the Philippines has 20 times U.S. capacity. Yeah, let's use the Philippines. They don't like the Chinese. That'll help us build a navy to combat the Chinese. This idea that we have to build everything at home is so economically illiterate, so, from a national defense perspective, stupid. And the reality is that who exactly is going to build these ships? Where are these employees going to come from? Where is the skilled labor that knows how to do this? Remember, we're going to build all our automobiles in the country. We're going to build everything in the country, and we're going to build ships, and we're going to build weapons. Where are all these people going to come from? We're not allowing immigrants. That's bad. We can't allow immigrants in. So who's going to do this work? And think about the waste of capital. Waste of capital. I mean, there are shipbuilding facilities in friendly countries. Let's duplicate them. That's called a waste of capital. You know, when Democrats do it, all right, the central planners, socialists, we expect that. Now Republicans do it, they're all the same. All the same. You don't need to bring back Middle America. The thing with Middle America is that Middle America has become rich. If you look at the number of people in the middle class, it shrunk. Not because they became poor, but because they got wealthier. Now, maybe by becoming wealthier, they got soft. And we need to make them men again. And the way to make them men again is to lower their standard of living and to fire them from soft, cushy jobs and give them lower wages in manly jobs that use muscles, because that's what we want. We want men who are muscle-bound. We don't want men with minds, God forbid. If you look at the stats, the middle class in the United States has shrunk because more people in the middle class have become rich. And the rich, the segment of the population defined as rich, has grown. Why? Because we've shifted away from stupid jobs. Well, not stupid jobs. That's not nice. I shouldn't call jobs stupid. We moved away from jobs that require muscle to jobs that require the mind. And yes, I know, requiring the mind is not practical. That's right. The mind is an impractical thing. That's what Bob here says, right? The mind is an impractical thing. We need them back to deal with muscle because that's practical. God. This will go down, I suspect, and fear, as the worst administration potentially in American history. Taking an economy that is shifting to higher productivity jobs, shifting to higher value creating jobs, shifting to really, shaping the world out there through design and designing the stuff that other people build. And it's going to take us backwards. The whole point of progress is to deindustrialize. I mean, the reality is that industrial jobs in the future will all be done by robots. Human beings ultimately are destined to have jobs that use the mind. And those who are not very smart will be able to use AI to make themselves much smarter so they can still do jobs that use the mind. But that's where we're heading. And fighting that is fighting progress, fighting the future, fighting advancement. It's, what did Ayn Rand call it? The divine right of stagnation. They want to stagnate. Well, they're going to get it. They're going to get it. They're going to get stagnation. All right. A few updates on Ukraine. Nothing really has changed. The United States is not providing Ukraine with intelligence, not providing Ukraine with arms, and the UK can't fill in. The European Unions are trying, but they can't. A lot of some of the more sophisticated weapon systems that the United States has given the Ukrainians have stopped working because they rely on a feed from the US. That feed is dead, so they can't work anymore. So they have paralyzed equipment on the front line of Ukraine. I mean, there's never been a president who's been more pro our enemies as Trump is right now vis-a-vis Russia. Everything Putin could have dreamt of in his wettest dream possible, Trump is handing him on a silver platter, and in return, we are getting exactly bupkis. Nothing. Nada. Not a thing. Anyway, in the meantime, the U.S., the Trump administration is trying to get rid of Zelensky. That is their priority, not Putin. Putin's a good guy. Remember, Putin is our friend. Putin is a good guy. Putin was invaded by aggressive Zelensky. So the Trump administration is trying to get rid of Zelensky. In its effort, senior members of the Trump administration have held secret discussions with the opposition leaders in Ukraine, Zelensky's top political opponents in Ukraine. Among them, Yulia Tymoshenko, the former prime minister of Ukraine, but also members of the European Solidarity Party, which is led by Zelensky's predecessor, Petro Poroshenko. The Trump administration, aides to Trump, are convinced that if an election was held in Ukraine today, Zelensky would lose. I think because they know how good Russian propaganda and Russian manipulation of elections are. And maybe they know that if elections were held today, it wouldn't even be an election. The Russians would just hack it and give the election. Now, this is in spite of the fact that Zelensky is polling between 45 and 55% in most polls, and he's way ahead of Tymoshenko and Poroshenko. Now, Trump aides are talking to these in the background in an effort to get them their support to call an election. And the thing is that they're getting one response from all the opposition leaders they talk to. And that is, no. Now is not a time to hold an election. We will hold an election after the war. Same response, even for people who are opposed to Zelensky. The only people who are really antagonistic to Zelensky is the United States. Tulsi Gabbard, President Trump, and J.D. Vance, they really despise Zelensky. The opposition within the country respects him, thinks, they might disagree with him about the quality of the job he's doing, but they think he's doing a good enough job for him to remain president until the war is over. Opposition leaders officially said they do not support calling an election to replace Zelensky while the war is going on. So that is the latest in Ukraine. The Trump administration continues to crash and burn, but more importantly, crash and burn the Ukrainians, crashing and burning them. Here's an interesting thing that's happened. I read about this today. Altius is a company formed by Palmer Luckey that builds drones, maybe some of the best drones in the world today. And these are attack drones. They've already taken out hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Russian equipment on the Ukrainian front. And they are particularly designed to fight the Russians. They've been designed for the Ukrainians. And they can handle kind of the electronic warfare systems that the Russians throw at them. These are supposed to fry the drones or disorient the drones. These drones can deal with that. Anyway, the UK government has announced that they have struck a $30 million deal with Anduril to supply advanced attack drones for Ukraine. So while the United States won't sell drones to Ukraine, the British will buy the drones from an American company and give them to the Ukrainian. I think this is good. I don't know how many drones that buys, but so far over 10,000 drones are being delivered to the front on the side of Ukraine to fight against this. So to fight against the Russians. All right, let's talk rare earth materials quickly. Just to point out, there are a lot of talk about Ukrainian rare earth materials and the what do you call it, the deal that Trump was going to sign with Zelensky and Zelensky was going to sign with Trump or whatever. A few things. One, there's actually very little evidence that there actually are any rare earth materials in Ukraine. Even if they are, rare earth materials are extremely complicated to mine and really expensive. Not only you have to extract them from rocks and clay, refine them into a product, and then purify them, all of which is unbelievably complicated and involves many stages. And it's difficult because the metals have similar chemical characteristics to what's around them. So it's very difficult to separate them out. Refining is really where things get super difficult, according to a UK Minerals Intelligence Center. Managing to separate them into individual elements takes a lot of time and energy. And it's an incredibly dirty process. As some of the ore containing rare earth has radioactive elements, such as thorium. And therefore, processing plants to process all of this are incredibly expensive. They have to have the capacity to deal with radioactive waste, again, which is difficult, expensive. The only country that has really mastered this and has been able to do production, separation on scale, in other words, processing on scale, is China. China's been investing in refining and processing rare earths for 30 years. And as a consequence, it controls 90% of the global processing capabilities. It's not even that the United States could go in there and build one of these processing plants quickly in Ukraine and start. This is a many years process. And it's not clear where the skills lie. By the way, there are rare earth materials in the United States. It's because of the cost of extraction and because of environmental regulation that we don't do it in the US. So you can mine rare earth materials pretty much in a lot of places around the world. But to build smelting and refining capabilities, that you probably need China. So right now, what you do is you send it to China. So just to give you a little context on the whole rare earth thing, I thought that was interesting in the Financial Times today, or yesterday. Everybody simplifies it. We found rare earth here. We find rare earth here. Everybody gets excited. Oh, well, no. That you've just begun. The process has just begun. All right. Now, I'm sure the U.S., by the way, could compete. But to compete, it would have to get rid of environmental regulations, and it would have to allow for mining in places where they haven't allowed for in the past. And they'd have to get rid of, they'd have to reduce regulations in a way that would encourage capital investment in these things. And if it's not done in the U.S., wherever it's done, it's going to require the same kind of stuff. Most countries have these environmental regulations, and they have problems of technology investment. All right, finally, Tesla's in trouble. In 2024, total unit sales in Tesla declined, I think for the first time. In Europe, Tesla sales fell 50%. 50%. In China, shipments of Tesla declined by 49%, basically 50%. Those are stunning numbers. Stunning numbers. Now, I told you this was happening. The Chinese have gotten really, really, really good at building electric cars. As good as Tesla, probably. Maybe better. At a much lower cost. And, Tesla is going to struggle. Now, everybody tells me Tesla's not a car company. It's a data company. It's an AI company. It's a robots company, whatever. It still needs to sell cars. That's where the data comes from. And Chinese cars are loaded with spyware. I'm really worried that the Chinese are going to know how often I go to the grocery store. That really worries me. As if Tesla is not accumulating all their data. Of course they are. Tesla's accumulating all their data. And I don't know, who is a bigger threat to my civil liberties right now, China or Elon Musk? I'll let you guys figure that one out. But that's the whole point. Tesla is a data company, which means it's accumulating data on my behavior. Tesla's in trouble. You can't get hit with a 50% drop in sales in Europe and in China and just nothing's happened. It's going to be interesting to see what Musk does. It'll be interesting to see what shareholders do. It'll be interesting to see what the board does. Teslas that sell in China are built in China, yes. Of course, Musk is a huge pro-China guy because so much of his sales and production happen in China. So it's going to be interesting. Going to be interesting to watch Tesla. His stock is down quite a bit in the last few weeks. And as a consequence of these numbers coming out about 2024, and it's not like there's something that is a game changer for 2025. Now, Musk says it's self-driving cars. Tesla will have a self-driving car this year. We will see. And we will see how well that sells. But keep an eye out. Keep an eye for how Tesla does in the months to come and how that affects Elon Musk, because all of our fates seem to depend on how Elon Musk feels these days. All right. That is the news from March 6th, Thursday, March 6th. And we are going to turn to your Super Chat questions. We have quite a few, and a lot of people put a lot of money into these questions. So I really, really appreciate it. We're doing really well on the Super Chat. We're into hour 2 and covered hour 2 already in terms of financially. So I really, really appreciate that. So David says Elon will start to force companies to buy his products. No, you missed it, David. He'll force the government to buy his products, right? That's where he is. He'll argue that in the name of government efficiency, all government departments should replace whatever automobiles they buy today with Teslas. Indeed, isn't there like a deal where the Defense Department is now buying a massive numbers of the discontinued Tesla Cybertruck? And on top of that, would you really be shocked if the sovereign wealth fund of the United States of America lands up investing in Tesla? Would that shock you? And of course, I think Jennifer's right. Tesla is going to pivot to designing self-driving tanks. Tesla, self-driving, self-firing, AI-guided tanks, which they won't sell to Ukraine. They might sell them to the Russians, but they won't sell them to Ukraine. All right, let's see. A few reminders to you guys. One, Alex Epstein, expert, like on the rare earth material. He knows his stuff. He knows the deposits in the United States. He knows why we're not extracting them. He knows what laws need to be repealed. He knows all that stuff, Alex does. You can follow Alex. You can learn all that juicy stuff from his Substack, alexepstein.substack.com. He is the #1 expert on these kind of things, environmental issues or environmental regulation issues, production of raw materials, fossil fuels, of course, energy, all of this stuff. alexepstein.substack.com. Follow him. and I think you will benefit enormously from the most knowledgeable person out there. Also, the Ayn Rand Institute is looking for people who would like to come to OCON and can't afford it, but are serious students of objectivism. You can apply for a scholarship. Go to aynrand.org/start here to apply for a scholarship to OCON. It's going to be July 1 through 5 where is it going to be? In Boston, which is a great place to do 4th of July. It's going to be a great conference. I'm speaking there. I'll be there. Great opportunity to hang out with speakers and many, many, many attendees who share your values, share your basic values, at least some of your values. I also want to, I announced this yesterday, on the 29th of March in London, I will be doing an event, a kind of a seminar. It will be basically part of the series I'm doing on how to apply objectivism, how to apply egoism to your life. We're going to call it the Rational Egoist Guide to Self-Confidence, Success, and Relationships. It's going to be a 4-hour seminar in London. So this is to my UK listeners. I'll be providing insights and tools to apply rational egoism to every aspect of your life: career, relationships, sex, personal growth. It's going to be a small group experience, lots of unique opportunities to engage directly. Hopefully challenge your thinking and develop a more purposeful, confident, fulfilling life through the principles of objectivism. So I hope you join us. It's £250, $322 at current exchange rate. You can sign up now. Registration is open. You can find information about it on yaronbrookshow.com. Just scroll down to the list of events and go to Saturday, March 29th. And if you click on register today, it'll take you to PayPal where you can sign up and pay. If I land up not doing the seminar, I will refund everybody their money. So there is a minimum threshold of how many people, but I do expect we'll meet it. So, but I won't know until you guys sign up. So please register. If you're in the UK, if you're out there, if you're in Europe and would like to fly in, it'll be fun. It'll be worth it. Come on over and sign up for a Rational Egoist session, a Rational Egoist seminar in London. And if it's successful, we'll try it in the US. But let's see if we can get the one in London off the ground, and let's see what the response is. All right. If you want to support the show on a regular basis and not have to worry about if you're here live or not live, particularly for those of you listening on podcasts or watching YouTube later on, more people watch it not live than live by a long shot, then please consider becoming a Patreon supporter. Go to Patreon. You can do $5, $10. $10 gives you an ad-free version of the podcast, or you can do $100, $500, $250, $1,000, whatever you want a month, and that way you don't have to worry about it. You know that you are trading with me. You are giving value for value. All right, let us turn to the questions, and we'll start with Nathan, $100. Thank you, Nathan. Nathan says, longtime watcher, finally putting money here, just subscribed. Excellent. I'm not an objectivist, but but it would be a better world if my biggest problems were working with a mainstream objectivist culture. I truly believe you guys preserve the flame, or an ember now, of the West. Well, thank you. I really, really appreciate that, Nathan. And I appreciate your understanding of the role we play, because I do think indeed that is what we do. We are preserving the ember flame of Western civilization. We are continuing the work that was done in the Enlightenment, trying to preserve the Enlightenment's influence on our culture. In that sense, if the Enlightenment is the West, we're doing that to the West. So thank you, Nathan. Thank you for being here. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for the support. Really, really appreciate it. And remember, guys, it's support like Nathan's and like yours, all of yours, that makes this show possible. Wouldn't exist without financial support from you. It's not that I'm independently wealthy and I do this as a hobby. This is my profession. This is how I make a living. You guys are how I make a living. Paul, also $100. Thank you, Paul. Paul says, yesterday was my birthday. Happy birthday. That's great. But I missed your show. Oh, so happy birthday to me. Keep up the great work and analysis. Really appreciate it, Paul. Thank you for giving me a gift for your birthday. Happy birthday for yesterday. All right, we got some $50 ones, and then we'll move on to $20 ones. David, I have witnessed you keeping your cool in the face of offensive people shouting at you. Would you recommend the same calmness to world leaders being verbally attacked by Trump? Yes, but at the same time, as you know, I keep my cool. I don't yell, but I also don't back down. That is, I think what they need to do is they need to stay calm and they need to come back. And I think by all evidence, the phone call with Trudeau, and I hate Trudeau. Trudeau's a lefty, compromising little fascist. Trudeau kept his calm and did not yell back at Trump. And Trump used profanity. Trudeau did not. And J.D. Vance was on the call, and you can guarantee that J.D. Vance did not calm Trump down. We've seen the J.D. Vance is there to inflame, not to calm. So yes, I thought Zelensky handled himself pretty well, particularly given that English is a second language. I thought he handled himself pretty well. He did not raise his voice. It was J.D. Vance who raised his voice. So yes, I think you have to stay calm, firm, assertive. And look, I think world leaders need to stop letting Trump get away with his bullshit. I think this is how he's gotten to this position. Republicans rolled. They just rolled over. Remember the Republican debates where Trump didn't show up and nobody criticized Trump? I mean, so yeah, nobody will criticize him. So everybody assumes, yeah, there's no criticism because he's perfect. He's so good. So, yeah, I mean, I think people need to be firm with him and go after him when appropriate, but in a calm way. Also, David, egoism is a virtue in OPAR. However, most people view egoism as evil. Is this a problem of semantics? Do objectivists define egoism differently than non-objectivists? How should one define egoism? There's certainly a semantic problem, but the problem is not semantics. That is, egoism is the right word, selfishness is the right word, self-interest is the right word. They're all good words. It is, egoism is the idea that you should be the beneficiary of your own actions, your values, that your moral responsibility is to fulfill, to achieve your values, not other people's values. That's what egoism means. Using your mind to pursue your values and ultimately to achieve your happiness. That's egoism. Now, the problem with the culture is that the culture has egoism as what we call a package deal. To some extent, they recognize that egoism does involve achieving your own values and achieving your own happiness. But they also think, or they've been taught, or they've been brainwashed into thinking, that egoism means abusing other people, exploiting other people, trampling on other people, lying, cheating, stealing, and backstabbing. And one of our jobs is to dismantle the package deal. Package deal is when you take a concept and you put things into that concept that are opposites, that don't belong together. One of these things just doesn't belong. That's from Sesame Street. Sesame Street was very good at undoing package deals. You got to be able to differentiate. The lying, cheating, backstabbing, exploiting is not egoistic. It's anti-egoistic. It's self-destructive. And therefore, that needs to be thrown, trashed. And we need to focus on what is egoism. And if you're not sure, well, but why is lying not egoistic? That's where the work begins. Let's work it out. Let's figure that out. But that would be an honest approach. Let's think about, what does egoism require of me? Does lying, cheating, stealing produce a good life? Does it result in happiness? Let me break that down. Let me really think that through. And what are the positives? What are the things that I would need to achieve in order to be really egoistic, that is, to achieve my happiness? The values to achieve are reason, purpose, and self-esteem. According to Rand, the virtues to get them. We've talked about this: rationality, productiveness, independence, honesty, integrity, pride, and I missed one. I can't remember which. So, so egoism is a virtue. Well, it's not really a virtue. Egoism is, egoism frames the beneficiary of your actions. And it's virtuous because that's the essence of virtue, is to act in a way that benefits you, that leads to your happiness. That's Rand's moral theory. And, she has a whole explanation for how that works and why that has to be. The best book on this is, of course, The Virtue of Selfishness, the first essay, The Objectivist Ethics. R.P. Knox, $50. Thank you, R.P. Knox. He says, I've seen the new trailer. This is the trailer for my capitalism course, right? For my capitalism course for the Peterson Academy. He says, it has tremendous commercial appeal. Yeah, I think it's beautifully done. It's really, really good. Did you really film in a white void? Yes. It's not a void. But I filmed in a studio where they had two walls, right? Two walls with a corner, rounded corner, but two walls. There was completely painted white, and a floor that was completely painted white. We had some chairs on this floor where students sat, and I stood, and there's a podium there where I have my laptop, and that's it. Everything is white. So I'm speaking with a white background, students on about white background, the floor is white, I'm walking on white, and it has this amazing effect. And it allows them to then place things there like you would on a green screen. So they've added all kinds of images to my talk that I think enhance it. So generally, yeah, the production quality is phenomenal. They had, 5 cameras. The lighting is amazing. The lighting was amazing. I have to say, I look good because I'm teaching. There are actual bodies there. There are people I'm talking to. I'm full of energy. I'm in top form in this course. I think it's some of the best stuff I've done. I hope that at the Peterson Academy, this causes people to think, the students. I hope that it is successful. So that the Peterson Academy invites me back to do more courses. I have a whole list of courses that I've suggested to them that I could teach. If you are so inclined and would like to sign up and take this course, please do so. The more people take the course, the more likely it is that they invite me back. If you do take the course, comment on it. There's a whole community within the Peterson Academy where you can write notes and communicate with people. Please write about it, that the value that the course was for you and whether you enjoyed it or not. I'm really hopeful that they invite me back, that I can do more courses, and that this has wide appeal. I have seen there's one main thread there of discussion, and it was really interesting, the one thread that has been created, and that is that one of the students who took the course, I talk about the morality of capitalism as dependent on a morality of self-interest, and he goes, wait a minute, self-interest, how does this fit with Christian morality? And then he tries, and so there's a whole thread about self-interest and Christian morality in this, because, of course, who signs up for Peterson Academy? It's a lot of religious guys, primarily men, right? But they're young, and they can be converted. So I'm hoping to have that kind of influence on these young Peterson acolytes. We will see. We will see. But yeah, I do think it's a really, really well-produced and well-executed, if I say so myself, course that I think most of you will enjoy. Clark, I don't see any scenario where technology stops so long as we don't go full government ownership. The Dagnys of the world will find ways around the bullshit, and life will improve despite a buffoon like Trump. I mean, that is true. Technology will probably somehow progress. I don't think Trump is the worst of it. Imagine who comes after Trump, and then you get a sense of how bad maybe it could become. Remember that in spite of what you're saying, the U.S. did go through a Great Depression. During the Great Depression, there were a lot of innovations. And yet the standard of living and quality of life of Americans declined. People's lives got worse, in spite of the fact that there were innovations happening. A lot of people lost their jobs. People really, really, really struggled. So I wouldn't be so confident and nonchalant that even if a few Dagnys survive, and even if in Atlas Shrugged, Dagny keeps producing, but how much impact does that have on the average person? Some slows down their death, but they're still dying. They're still being crushed. So while I agree with you, I think one should be cautious, and things can get a lot worse than they are now. 89 MRSA, just to say thank you, and while here, your opinion on the possibility of Trump supporting Serbia and the annexation of part of Bosnia and Herzegovina, Western Balkans. Putin and Orban already supported from Croatia. Oh, great. Croatia. I've only been to Croatia once in Dubrovnik, and Dubrovnik was beautiful. Really beautiful. Hard to tell, but certainly, the inclination of the Trump regime, the Trump administration, is to side with Orban and Putin over Western Europe. So it's to side with what they view as kind of conservative, authoritarian-like regimes over leftists, which is what they consider Western Europe to be. And in that sense, it wouldn't at all surprise me if they sided on the side of Serbia with regard not only to Bosnia and Herzegovina, but also Kosovo. And generally, I think Serbia, being a much more conservative, Orthodox Christian country, is going to be much more sympathetic vis-a-vis Trump than, Bosnia, which is Muslim, and Kosovo, which is Muslim. So, yeah, I mean, there's a good chance that Trump sides with Serbia in all of these conflicts. And I think generally Trump is going to side with Russia in the conflicts around the world. That's what it looks like. I see no reason to doubt that. Trump really does admire Putin. I told you this. I've been telling you this again for 8-9 years. He really does. It's not pretense. It's not a show. It's not some 4D chess. He likes Putin, respects Putin, admires Putin, wants to please Putin. Hopper Campbell, enough people in the West want to live and want to be productive and want to build wealth that they won't allow outright subjugation. Partial subjugation, they will tolerate because they don't see an alternative to it. Maybe. I hope you're right. It certainly seems that way, that they will allow partial and not full. I mean, you could have said the same thing of Germany in the 1920s and 30s, early 30s, and yet there you have it. They allowed for it ultimately. But we're more advanced. We're further along. So maybe we won't. But you can't put the probability of real subjugation, of real fascism at zero. I just don't think you can put that probability at zero. And I think with every passing day, as the opposition is weaker and less philosophical and less principled, that probability has to be rising. David, is Europe's new love of debt a good reason to buy Eurobonds and saving in euros? No, I mean, it creates the real risk of inflation, which would diminish the value of those bonds and diminish the value of those of the currency. So no, I would not buy Euro bonds. Again, unless you're buying a diversified portfolio of bonds across many different countries, I don't see any reason to favor Euro bonds over other bonds. Yields are going up, but they're still pretty low. And there's quite a bit of risk, and there's quite a bit of risk in terms of how they deal with this debt, whether they cap it at some point, whether they go off the rails and have to inflate it away. David also asks, does investment in bonds only make sense if one waits till bond matures? No. Bonds can go up in value. If interest rates decline, bonds go up in value. If you bought bonds in the 1980s and 82, you made a fortune as bonds yields declined and the price of bonds went up through the roof, and you might not have held them to maturity. No, I mean, bonds can be an investment that it can serve a lot of different purposes, but among other things, if you believe interest rates are going to go down, you can make a lot of money by investing in bonds. Now, you would have to have a good reason to believe in that. But no, there are circumstances in which bonds only make sense to hold it to maturity. But generally, bonds are just another asset that you can speculate on. More educated speculation or less educated speculation, but we don't know the future, so we don't know how the price is going to go. The one thing is true: if you hold them to maturity, you'll know exactly what you're going to get. You just won't know what it's worth, because what it's worth will depend on interest rates, inflation, for example, during that period. You have to take my Intro to Finance class. Andrew asks, according to OPAR, Rand once answered Leonard about what philosophy had to say about sex. Quote, sex is good, sex is moral. She had a brilliant way of essentializing. Is altruism silent on the issue of sex or antagonistic? Well, I mean, altruism taken seriously would say, that you should be, the pleasure you get from sex is selfish. And therefore, you should feel guilty about it and you should denounce it. And if you think about Christianity, if you think about much of the attitude towards sex among Christians, that is a big part of their attitude towards sex. They feel guilty about it. They feel guilty about the pleasure they get from it. So, yes, altruism is not silent about sex. I mean, maybe the altruistic philosophers didn't talk about sex. I don't know if Comte, the philosopher who coined the term altruism, talked about sex, or I don't know if Kant talked about sex. But Christianity certainly talks about sex. And Christianity's view of sex is quite clear. It's something to feel guilty about. It's dirty. It's shameful. And, that's part and parcel with altruism. Part and parcel with the idea of altruism. Why is sex bad outside of marriage? Sex changes somehow when it's inside marriage versus outside marriage? I mean, that's a completely arbitrary barrier in terms of sex. Sex is good. Sex is pleasurable. Sex is moral. Indeed, as I said many times, it's immoral to wait until getting married to have sex, particularly with the person you're going to marry. You better have sex before you get married to make sure you're compatible. Make sure the sex is good. It's going to be a big part of your marriage, your life. Make sure it's good. Oh, as a whole, yes. Sex is something to feel guilty. It's the origin of original sin. It's, yes, you're an animal inside marriage, have sex, okay, fine, but it's an animalistic thing you have to do. It's not good. It's not moral. It's not virtuous. It's not wonderful. And a little bit of guilt around it, centered around original sin. Yeah. So Christianity is very anti-sex. All you have to do is go back and read Augustine and read the Christian fathers, and remember that to be a real Christian, monks, real Christians, right? Priests don't marry, at least Catholics, right? That's the original Christianity. Ask Luther what he thought about sex. Dirty, this worldly, ugly. There's nothing in Christianity that's pro-sex, even within marriage. It's just something you do. It's something that's an urge, a need, and you do it. But there's nothing positive about sex. Read Luther, read Calvin, read Augustine, read, there's a reason why they went to become monks. David says, Luther nailed the Kama Sutra to the church door. Imagine if he'd done that. I mean, the whole future of Western civilization would have been different and so much better. So much better. I mean, the Kama Sutra is so much more of a healthy attitude towards sex than Christianity could ever imagine. Right? Lee, for the intellectual preaching and altruistic world, where enslaved to be enslaved is the only game in town, nuclear Armageddon is a fitting end. A blinding example of how both Trumpism and Marxism relations become lose-lose. Yeah, I mean, the ultimate, that's good, Lee, thank you. A Brit, you should come to my seminar in London. I'm going to bug all the people who give me pounds sterling. Come to my seminar in London. 29th, you can find information on yaronbrookshow.com. If you scroll down to where the events are. March 29th, center of London, easy to get to. Fun event. We'll be doing a seminar on being a rational egoist. Anyway, absolutely. I mean, the ultimate in lose-lose is war. And altruism is a lose-lose ideology. And ultimately, it leads to war. If you read Ayn Rand's in Capitalism, Not an Ideal, read her essay on roots of war. Altruism and collectivism and tribalism. Everything that, this new right in America and Putin and Xi represent. That's how you get wars. Putin represents this more than anybody. That's how you get wars. Wars are a product of, tribalistic nationalists. Wars are a product of tribalism, of altruism. And they're the ultimate lose-lose. And nobody is doing more to move us towards World War III than Donald Trump is. And he started in his first administration, his whole attitude towards the brutal dictator of North Korea. That was a major move towards World War III. My seminar in London will not be broadcast, will not be videotaped, will not be broadcast. So, it's going to be, it's going to be just for the people there. Do people view being too honest and genuine as exposing themselves to being exploited? Doesn't seem like many Americans are genuine. Yes, I think that's right. I think, again, that altruism teaches you that. That is, they view morality as altruistic. Why should you be honest? Because it helps other people. Honesty is not something that helps you. It's something that helps others, the other. which creates immediate skepticism. It creates immediate conflict between, wait a minute, if I'm honest, just appease those guys, I don't want to appease those guys. I don't like those guys. And generally, altruism creates a lose-lose hostility, antagonism between people. And therefore, people want to be guarded. They don't trust other people. I explained, I think, yesterday, how altruism creates antagonism between people. And it's the root of war, ultimately. War between individuals, war between nations. Harper Campbell, it's not socialism versus capitalism on our political scene anymore. It's fascism versus fascism. Both parties are fascist philosopher kings. Yes, it's different variations of fascism, different variations of control, different emphasis on what they would control, how they would control it, how they implement it. Absolutely. Fascism to the left of me, fascism to the right. Harper, do statists today have a bit more respect for markets than they did pre-World War II? As much as they hate markets and freedom, they've seen results in abolishing them altogether. Yes, in some pragmatic, short-term, superficial way, yes. They realize we need to leave certain golden gooses a little free so they can lay the golden egg. In the same way, by the way, that China does, right? China knows. And I think the latest experiment in controls have taught them even deeper that they need to leave people at least a little bit free when it comes to economics if they want the economy to do well. They need to do some of it. And even now, Xi, we talked about this, about how recently Xi met with all the tech guys and said, yo, we want you to innovate. We want to leave you free to innovate and stuff. Because they know, even Lenin in the 1920s in in Russia, communist Russia, went through kind of reforms to create a little bit of a market because he realized that's the only way he could prevent starvation. James, has Rand's influence succeeded in industry while failed in politics? I wouldn't say it's failed in politics. It hasn't tried in politics, and it's been only partially successful in industry. It's inspired people in industry. It hasn't really inspired people in politics. Politics is so corrupt. I don't think you can be inspired by Ayn Rand and go into politics because I think it's just too much. Marilyn says, eliminate the Jones Act. Yes, but that would go exactly in the opposite direction of what Trump is doing. Exact opposite direction. Enric, ancient Greece was successful and wealthy through trade, and their leaders built walls fighting enemies, resulting in poverty. History is rhyming. Yeah, I mean, the reality is that the way to get poorer is always to build walls, to restrict trade, and to constrain the freedom of the people within to produce. All right. Breadpan says, I was going to ask your thoughts on Peter Navarro, but you covered it already. Thanks, Yaron. Yeah, I mean, I can't think of a worse person in economics. Dan, Yaron, the Trump administration really seems to be lacking brain power. Oh, yeah. And principles. Do you think this is the main issue and what's to be done? What do Dems have? No, it's not the main issue. The main issue is they lack principles. The main issue is they lack ideas. The main issue is they lack a philosophy. And the fact that they're also not smart only complicates it. Democrats are in the same position. They lack ideas. They lack a philosophy. They lack principles. They generally are smarter people. But if you lack the philosophy and you lack the right ideas, you're going to mess up and you're going to screw up no matter what. We're in a position where both political parties are a complete mess. The difference is right now is that the Republican Party is Trump's party. And the Trump party is so devoid of any semblance of any ideas and principles that it is on the verge of causing more damage than any Democrat could ever imagine to cause. Ryan, hi, just got here, turned on my feed. Musk says Ukraine must have elections and Zelensky would lose in a landslide. This guy is a joke, makes me sick. Yeah, I covered this a little bit. They are really trying to influence the opposition in Ukraine to encourage an election in Ukraine. The opposition parties in Ukraine say no. Our constitution is quite clear. We won't have an election until after the war. We support Zelensky in the meantime. Zelensky would probably win. He's way ahead of the opposition. I do not know what is going on with Musk. It could be that the ketamine is affecting his brain. But on the Ukraine issue, he has completely lost his mind. Whatever respect I had for him is slowly or fast diminishing and evaporating because his position in Ukraine is so pathetic, infantile, ridiculous, stupid. Why should you hold an election? There's a war going on. The Brits didn't hold an election during their war. And who are you to tell them to hold an election? Who the F are you? The Ukrainians don't want to hold an election. The opposition parties don't want to hold an election. They voted on this in parliament, and it was unanimous support for Zelensky and support for the state of emergency they've got. Who are you guys? Who is Musk or Trump to tell them they have to have an election? Let the Ukrainians decide when they have an election. And there's a process they're going through. It's not random. It's not arbitrary. It's a process. How about Putin have an election? How about that? I mean, have you heard one bad word about Putin from Musk, from Elon Musk? One. Unbelievable corruption. Corruption of the mind, corruption of values. These people are anti-liberty, anti-freedom, anti-human right now. And Musk is completely bought into this. I don't care how many Ayn Rand posts he makes. His attitude towards Ukraine is despicable. Esoteric dichotomy. Hey, Yaron, I dabble in creative writing and like fantasy science fiction. I recall objectivism opposing royalty and nobility. Does this extend to fiction too? No, you can have all kinds of fiction is fiction. It's not real. I oppose royalty and nobility. I don't know if objectivism has a position on royalty and nobility. But yeah, we believe all men are created equal in rights and before the law. So why have royalty and nobility if not? But fiction, you can create whatever world you want, and the fiction has to stand on its own. But I don't get royalty and nobility. And I think fiction that has it struggles because what do you do with them? Like, this is why, at the end of the day, a show like Game of Thrones has nothing really to offer in terms of inspiration or good ideas. Because in the end of the day, it's just a bunch of kings and queens fighting over rule, over oppression, over enslavement. So there are no positive values in the end. So it's very difficult to write good fiction with nobility in it that actually has positive values to offer. Although I'm sure it's possible. Rafael, it feels good to arrive home after a long day of work, connect to YBS Live, and do some cooking. It feels like peace. I am super glad. Super glad this is the routine. I appreciate that. Thank you, Rafael. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it. I appreciate the support. Thanks to all the super chatters. Thanks to everybody else. We will be back tomorrow. Same time, same place. In the meantime, have a great day. I'm hoping for better news. One of these days, we'll have better news. But in the meantime, you get to spend a little bit of time with me railing about the state of the world. There's some what do you call it? Pleasure in that, I guess. All right. See you guys.